Welcome to the All Things Real Estate Podcast with our very own Josh Barker. With more than 20 years of experience and over 5,000 properties sold, Josh brings a unique perspective to the real estate market. Let's get started.
Welcome, Josh.
Welcome, Joey.
It's September 2025. The months just keep rolling through.
September to remember.
Yeah. And you did your market update this month, and there were some numbers that I was a little like wow. One of them was the difference between the average price and the median price from this time from a year ago.
Yeah.
And I think for all the non-statisticians,
okay,
if I said that right,
sure,
that can throw people like, wait, the average is up and the median's down. Can you kind of go over what those numbers are and like what that really means?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the big picture is that average sales prices, if you take all of the sales together and add them together and divide it by the total number that you accounted for. A median sales price is where you literally take 100 and you pick the middle number. So to your point, last month, the total closings averaged 424, up from 396 a year ago.
It's a pretty big bump, man.
It is a bump, yeah. And the median sales price was in that 360 range, which was lower than it was last year by about 10,000.
So there's more homes underneath that are selling. There's some homes that came to market under 360 that we didn't see last year.
Yep. I mean, a good way to look at it is that literally half of all sales last month took place under 360,000.
That's crazy. And that they're not taking land or anything into account.
No,
for that,
that's
right?
all
These are
single
homes.
family. Yep.
Wow. Okay. At the same time, the average price went up. So that means some of the larger markets are probably opening up a little bit. You're seeing more sales.
Yeah. Well, new construction, I think, is playing into some of that too, because most of those price points are concentrated in the mid 4s, 5s, and 6s. So that's having an impact on pulling up that average sales price.
So, I think everybody, because national numbers and Reading numbers, they're not, there's some things that are the same, but they're substantially different. I think people are listening to national news and thinking, hey man, the market's really coming down, but the Reading market's not coming down.
No, I mean, right now our absorption rate, that means the supply of homes for sale currently, if nothing else comes up for sale, it would take us about 5.48 months to sell off the existing inventory. And right now we're looking at a replenishment rate that's in the high 300s per month. So it really does look like we're shifting towards the tail end of a neutral market, and maybe in the fall we might be in a buyer's market here.
Yeah, but that's also something that's really healthy. I think, I can't remember when it started. It was definitely pre-220 that the market was crazy. Just was.
Yeah, I mean, when you have inventories as tight as there was 5 years ago, and a lot more buyers competing over fewer products available, I mean, that pushes prices up. It creates these bidding wars, and everybody's having to make trigger decisions quickly on both sides, and it's uncomfortable. Where now, right now you have more homes for sale. Our inventory is up 30% over last year. Buyers are able to shop a little bit more, get a little bit more comfortable before they write an offer. Homeowners are finding themselves in situations where they're being a bit more flexible in terms of negotiations to help put a transaction together. And it just feels better.
Yeah, but all that said, prices are not plummeting.
No, not at all.
We're not one of those markets like some of the bigger markets where, new construction we don't have a whole lot of new construction to start with.
No.
But there's several large cities that got a little bloated, and they've got some real issues. Well,
if you look at just south of us, like in Roseville, for example, I was reading a report the other day, and it was saying that there was literally 300 new housing permits issued per month in Roseville.
Yeah.
If you're an existing homeowner that's lived there for 15 or 20 years in your home, you're noticing that your home pricing is coming down a little bit. Yeah. Because new construction is taking over. Now, you kind of take that and put it into Redding, California. We don't have new construction at a meaningful level, meaning that we're not inundating the market with new, fresh construction, which means that we're not getting our existing resale market to get hit by valuations. They're doing fine because we just don't have a lot of competition right now.
And we really only have two major builders that are actively building. I mean, there's always a few general contractors that are building a home here or a home there.
Always want to give them credit too, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. That is, I've gone through 2 remodels where we hired contractors. There's a lot going on, man.
That's salt of the earth. I mean, I really have a lot of respect for contractors, both the small and the larger ones. But yeah, to your point, D.R. Horton still predominant builder here in the market. It's been reported that they will be slowing down here between now and spring and likely transitioning maybe even out. Palomar Builders is kind of building up right now, and in full disclosure, we represent Palomar, but they are definitely growing right now and intending to lean into providing more and more housing units to the market, which we appreciate, obviously, not just in the brokerage side, but as a homeowner in the community, I'd like to see more housings.
Yeah, but the bigger point for me is that we're not going to see any major construction going on that's going to have a big impact on volume and inventory. It's still going to be
not at all.
The shifts in inventory are going to be existing homes coming to market. And that, although that's going up, when you're so used to it being a 2 or 3 month absorption rate and you get up to 5.4, it's like, oh, wow. But it's like, that's the neutral market. That's actually a healthy market. It's probably a neutral market.
Correct. Well, you have to, curb off inflation, housing inflation a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to find that your kids are priced out of the market. That's what's happened in the Bay Area and Southern California, is that the rate of inflation for housing up there was so quick that kids would move out of the house, and literally, even if you had a good paying job, you couldn't afford a house, you had to move. We don't want to see that happen to Redding. We'd like to see housing continue to be affordable, and so far it still is. It's one of the most inexpensive places to live in the state of California from an affordability perspective, which is great. We are probably on par, if not slightly higher than the national average, but we're certainly within the realm of affordability, which is good.
I wonder what the numbers look like for the average housing price compared to the average salary or household income. I don't know if you know those. I put you on the spot there with that.
Yeah, we've done some of the math on that. I mean, it depends if you're doing combined family or not, and it's hard, and what I don't like about averages is that it really does pull in, everybody, right? But I think it's fairly realistic to state that the average combined household income for a family that's both participating in the economy at a full-time capacity is probably bringing in $120,000 a year in average revenue for the family. And then there's taxes with that and everything else. And then, when you afford for what's available to purchase, you know what you're going to afford? Under $360,000.
Yeah.
Which is why the median sales price is where it's at.
So it kind of all balances out. One of the big factors is in a few days, we're supposed to hear what the feds are going to decide. I mean, everyone's kind of like calling it and saying they think they know what's going to happen. What's your thoughts? Well,
I'm glad you asked that part, because that's a concern for me, because I think there's going to be some disappointment for some and maybe some excitement for others. But the big picture is this. It's more than likely that the Federal Reserve is definitely going to reduce that interest rate between 1/4 point and 1/2 point in the next meeting. You can debate over how much it's going to be, but it's likely going to be at least 1/4 point. The concern I have is that a lot of people think that's going to directly correlate to the 30-year mortgage. And
it usually does. I mean, that's usually.
Well, and I think it already has. So my point is, right now you're sitting at interest rates are averaging around 6.5%. Well, they were 7%. But now that they understand the Federal Reserve is likely to start cutting rates based on the data, you're starting to see the mortgage interest rates coming down already. So I don't know if there's going to be this major shift in the mortgage rate after the Federal Reserve comes out and maybe states that they're going to reduce the rate by up to 1/2 point. I just don't think it'll have a huge effect, because that effect has already been kind of cooked into the rate that you currently have on the 30-year mortgage.
Yeah, I think there's some other factors I know at the federal level where they're kind of trying to address the housing shortage, which it's so confusing to me, because we can talk about how there's this bloat in certain cities and they've got issues with new construction and maybe they overbuilt, but nationally we're way under for what we need. I'm confused as how that even happened.
How we got so far behind on the housing?
Yeah, like how did it get that bad so fast?
Well, it's really hard for us. I mean, right now I could tell you every report I have, it literally makes me crazy, because one side of it is completely optimistic, the other side is completely pessimistic. And here's the thing: I mean, politics aside, do we have 10 million people that extra into the country in the last 3 years? If that's the case, that's a lot of housing demand. Are 8 million of the 10 million leaving? Well, that's going to change the number of what's needed, right? So yeah. I feel like it's going to take a while, probably anywhere between 3 to 5 years from now, before we even have a real clue on what our actual housing needs are. I think we can all agree we need more. But the degree in which how much more, I think that is a very, very difficult number to identify. Not that it's a problem this year or next year, but hopefully we have some clarity on that in the next several years, as we might run closer to what the needs actually are.
Yeah, and it's a big part of it is the fact that housing cannot just turn on a dime.
It can't.
You can't just produce. Cars, they can get at it and within a few months inventory.
Sure. Or
like we saw with chicken eggs. You know what I mean? It went down and it turned around, it came right back. God love chickens. And but with housing, it takes years to steer the Titanic.
Yep.
And I don't. Is there anything? Have you heard of anything that's going on that might affect? Because one of the big things that you've talked about a lot is regulation in housing, how it just keeps stacking and stacking and stacking, and you're making it harder and harder for builders to bring product to market at a price point that consumers can afford.
Sure.
It's this like pressure from both sides.
Yeah. I think that the good news is on the housing with legislation and regulation, I think is what we're really talking about. I think it's on the radar for the state heavily. I think they recognize that there's a degree of which they're responsible for making it easier for contractors to build. In fact, I think there's some legislation that's been out already that's basically said that we're freezing all of our new regulations with the exception of a few carve-outs, which when I read them, I was like, well, like environmental carve-outs and things like that. I'm like, wasn't that where the problem's coming from? Yeah. But they have stated already that they're freezing that. Federally right now, housing policy is going to be very proactive. So I don't see that at the federal level, I could see them not imposing a lot of additional strain on builders. So I think right now, if you're a builder, as long as interest rates continue to come down, and the demand is obviously still there, and legislation and regulation is on your side, go build and be prosperous, right? May you all turn condo. It's an opportunity for sure.
Earlier, I don't know if it was last month or the month before, you talked a little bit about multifamily housing. If I remember correctly, that was a concern. I think you had a concern about it. Well,
I think that the country right now is kind of shifting towards being a renting community instead of an owning community, and that is a concern because I think one of the pride or fundamentals of the American dream is home ownership, and putting your stake in the ground and staking your claim and working hard and all those things that come with that. So I think the rental side of things is a bit concerning, but part of it's because the interest rates that for most construction, at least in California right now that you're seeing, it's low income, low interest rate loans that are funding this for the multifamily side. And so, and not that there's a major problem with that, but it just, at some point that balance sheet starts to become more problematic, like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years down the road. I'm curious to see how those transformations from the multifamily, how that interacts with the market.
So does that mean like there's more money for people that want to build multifamily or something, or there's financial incentives to say, hey, instead of building some houses, why don't you build these units? And it's not to degrade that at all, but it's like you said, that's the American dream isn't to rent. The American dream is to own your own home.
Right, and it'll have an indirect impact on single family rental units as well. I mean, if you obviously replenish the housing market with a massive amount of multifamily units, either those units are going to go down in rent price, or the competing single family homes are going to go down in rent price, and the answer is probably both. So if we overdo it, so to speak, it could become a challenge. Right now, I don't see that as the issue. Right now, it's probably solving more problems than it's causing, but there will be a point where it could cause more problems than it's solving.
Well, it's that's kind of the thing of relying on the government to do a lot of this stuff. Is it has this huge accordion effect.
Yep.
Where they always overcompensate. And again, it's like steering the Titanic. There's no like just whizzing through stuff. It's huge moves to one side or huge moves to the other. And they almost always have, you shift hard, then all of a sudden you've got another problem on the other end of the spectrum.
Yes, I think private capital is typically better allocated than public capital. Yeah. So whether or not, there's good decisions made in the future, I'm not questioning anything that's been done so far, like I said, but I am concerned that, if you were to bring in 2,000 multifamily units in the city of Reading over the next 24 months, for example, that's going to have a major impact on the existing rental market. And then you could have things like deferred maintenance and blight and all those other things. That's an extreme case. I don't see that happening, but it just kind of illustrates that it's that slow burn, right? So make sure you do it well.
When I was growing up, Oakland was always, it was almost like a derogatory term, Oakland. It was like the butt of jokes and stuff. And then I remember in the late 1900s, early 2000s, as all the money poured in there, people purchased it, it completely transformed Oakland. You know what I mean? It was the ownership. And so you can see that in the neighborhood I live in. There's been a shift from rentals to homeowners, lots of families buying. and immediately the yard looks better.
Yes.
They paint the exterior, they put new awnings. I mean, it's the pride of ownership. And then everybody's value goes up. I love it when I drive through my neighborhood and, contractors working. I love it because it's just, our house is going up in value. Speaking of rentals, how is the rental market in Reading? Is that stable, going up, down?
Yeah, the rental market's sitting pretty strong right now. We're at about a 7.5% vacancy, which for this time of year is actually really good. The average 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a 2-car garage is renting out for about $2,200 a month. So it's going good.
That sounds high.
It is. It actually is pretty high.
Yeah.
But we're seeing people do it all the time. And again, if you take that combined income for a family in the city of Reading of roughly $120,000 a year, you kind of see where that $2,200 is now.
Yeah. So looking forward, we're thinking about how, the feds will probably lower interest rates, but that may not equate to what everyone's thinking and suddenly lower mortgage rates. I mean, we're going to find out. The future's coming whether we like it or not.
Yep.
We don't have a lot of new construction going on or anything really super in the works. As Jeb Allen is building with Palomar and like you said, D.R. Horton, but I think you said that there's rumors or there's a murmuring that they're going to slow down construction.
Who's that? Not Palomar.
No, D.R. Horton.
So my understanding is that they're winding down a couple of projects on the east side of town, probably by spring next year. They might be finished up. And again, this is just speculation. And then they're still heavily involved over in an area called Sauk Creek on west side of Reading. And it's kind of unknown for sure how that's going to proceed. I wouldn't begin to try to make any guesses on that. I've heard some different things, but I don't think it's wise to speak of those on a podcast that I don't know a whole lot about. But yeah, it's, they've been here and gone before, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if they do it again.
And one of the other big factors that it wasn't a factor several years ago, but it has definitely been for the last year plus is insurance rates. Yeah.
And that's a bigger challenge. I mean, especially over in the west side of town right now, anything with a slope to it already has an already higher rating, if you will. So if you look back up to a canyon or something like that, there's some pretty challenging insurance rates that go with that. So, but the state of California right now, they're proactively looking at opening up that door, if you will, for as many insurance companies as possible. They're trying to make it easier for insurance companies to evaluate properties individually instead of just collectively, all in an effort to try to bring down the overall rate. But I think the key there is simple. Deregulate a little bit more, make it easier for more competing insurance companies to come into the state. Not that I have all the answers, but that does make sense that if you increase the supply, right, more carriers, that it would certainly help to bring that cost down.
So you work with a lot of buyers. What are like some of the conversations that you guys are having? Like, what are the concerns right now? Is it just business as usual, or is there anything going on that's a little bit different this time around? You said they obviously have more options. There is more inventory.
Yeah.
I think in August this year, the same number of homes sold as last year.
Yeah.
But the inventory's higher.
Yeah. I mean, the inventory is up 30%. Number of sold properties last month was 201. So it's very similar. Last year was the same, 201, ironically, right? It's exactly the same number. But I think most buyers right now are just wanting to make sure they're making a good decision. What I mean by that is that, is it the right time to buy? That would be a good concern. Can I afford to buy? That's another really important question to ask. What does the forecast look for housing in the market in the future? Like if I were to buy now, will I regret it and wish I would have bought a year from now? Or do I wait 2 years and then wish I would have bought yesterday? So there's a lot of that kind of education that's taking place in the market. Of course, fire insurance is a big concern. And, for us, we're just educating our clients up front. Let's make sure that we bring this in as part of the equation so that you're not going to have that sticker shock of what fire insurance might be in the future. So they're prepared for that. But I think that for the most part, most purchases right now are what I would call necessity purchases. Yeah. You're either going to rent or you're going to buy. And if you're going to buy, it's because it makes sense. You're going to stay there for a while. You're thinking the long game with that. And if you're renting, it's probably because you want to remain more ambulatory and be able to move a little faster if an opportunity presents itself.
So, my brother's a real estate agent in Florida, and we were talking this morning, and we always, hey, how's it going? And he said, I just have a lot of people that are waiting for interest rates to drop. They say they want to buy when interest rates drop. And I'm like, well, as soon as interest rates drop, the purchase price of the home is going to go up. So I would think if you could time the market, which I'm not advocating, you're going to want to get in right before the dealer busts and then leave before the dealer gets blackjacks. That's my advice. But was you purchase before the interest rates come down so that you get the lowest possible price on the house, and then you refinance when the interest rates go down. Because usually if the market even gets a hint that interest rates are going to go down, prices, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a preemptive strike. They start jacking up the house or holding off on the house a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think Warren Buffett describes it really well when he talks about cost of money, interest rates, and the cost of assets, value, houses, right? So if you take a scale and if rates were to come down, valuation goes up. Mm-hmm. If you were to take rates and bring them up, valuation comes down. And so if you ask yourself, where do you think you sit on that spectrum? Do you think that the interest rate environment is higher compared to where it'll be in the future, or lower? Nobody times anything high or low perfectly. No. So really you just want to buy, you want to either buy or sell based on where you want to be in the market. So if you think rates are higher, okay, well, if you were to buy now and rates start to drop, the value of the asset's going up, and then you refinance, right? So I think that's what some folks are thinking. They're, probably thinking that rates will be lower in the future than they are today. I tend to be in that camp, but nobody's got that crystal ball.
No, I mean, we've been hearing that interest rates were going to drop for well over a year. And I don't think that I think maybe last fall, they may have lowered them a little bit. Yeah. But with almost no impact really. But interest rates were as high as I think 8% a couple of years ago. And you're saying that they're in the mid to kind of higher sixes right now. Obviously, it depends on credit score, what type of loan you get like that. So, I mean, we all hope for 5% interest rates. I've talked in the past, like, hey, are we ever going to see those 2 and 3% interest rates? It's like,
I doubt it.
Yeah, probably never. I mean, best case scenario, I mean, what are we? We're like 5.5%, 5.75%, or
I mean, if I had to give you my best guess, I mean, if you were to fast forward 5 years from now with a really leveled out economy, I mean, we had mortgage interest rates that were in the 4.5% to 5% range for many, many years. Do I think we could get back there? I think so. Is it likely? Maybe. I would guess more on that than to think they would be higher than they are today.
And I think when we talk about the Reading market, if we're not seeing a serious commitment to like a lot of builders building, we're not going to get that inventory replenishment. And if interest rates do come down, housing prices are going to go up. And this is such a case by case thing, because when we talk about a couple that's renting that can buy a house for $350,000, that's a very different story from somebody who's like, well, I'm thinking about selling mine for $675 and buying that one for $815. It's a completely different set of factors and variables.
Yeah, and I don't see new construction kicking off in any crazy volume at all. I really don't. Right now,
It's too hard.
No, I mean, the reason why Palomar is effective in the local market is because of their land acquisition cost. I mean, they are, in my opinion, greatly discounting the cost of the lot to build these homes, but it's because they already own them. They already own these properties. D.R. Horton is a national home builder. So for them, it's not just Redding, California that's on the P&L. It's how many different localities around the country are they building in, and how many units can they say they produced. So they're not necessarily tied to the same economics that the average builder is in town.
They have huge economies of scale.
Oh, big time. And if they want to move, 10 more houses this month, they might call Redding, California and say, hey, put a red tag sale on those properties right there. And and they can only do that for so long, obviously, but they already own these properties, so they're going to have to do something with them.
I wonder what their monthly door spend is just on buying doors. I don't mean doors to houses. I mean the contract to just get front doors. How many thousands of front doors every month? Yeah. You know what I mean? That's huge volume.
Yeah, this is a totally different animal.
Yeah. One of the things that it could just be that I'm not plugged in, but one thing I noticed is that you go back a few years, and for many years, home flipping shows were the craze. I don't hear that much anymore.
I don't either.
Yeah. The markets, and that's probably what drove a lot of it. I know back in the end of the 90s, I'm going way back. I remember it was the first time I'd ever heard of the capital gains waiver. So if you were a single person.
Yeah, it was in the 90s when it came out.
Yeah, it was $250,000. If you're a married couple, it's $500,000. Mm-hmm. You have to have been your primary residence, I think 2 out of the last 5 years. There's some, but that was like a turbo boost on home flipping.
Yeah. And right now there's some legislation in the state of California sponsored by the California Association of Realtors, where they're trying to up that from $500,000 to $1 million.
I think they should.
Yeah.
I mean, in the spirit of it, I mean, you and I know several realtors in the Bay Area and Los Angeles, and $2.5 million condos.
Right.
That's nothing. You and I know someone who, sells $25 million houses. And when I look at them, they're gorgeous and everything. The location's gorgeous, but I'm like, whoa,
Yep.
$25 million,
Yep.
For maybe like 1,900 square feet. Right? And you're just like, we're just blown away. Of course, you're on the Pacific Ocean. You know what I mean? It's Malibu, it's whatever. But like that person doesn't get really motivated over saving $500,000.
No,
no. For the tax, they're like, I got $10 million in tax revenue. So I'm glad to hear California. That's kind of where I was going with. Well, that was passed 27 years ago.
Yep.
$500,000 27 years ago is quite a bit different from $500,000 now.
Yeah.
And it does have a big impact on those people that are constantly flipping homes. But all the factors that I think drove that market, and there were a lot, they're all kind of leveling off. I just don't think that they apply to Redding. I think the gambling style of real estate that was going on for a while, which is all those factors are gone. And I feel like the local market's very, very healthy and in a good place. I know somebody who listed their house and it's been listed for 100 days is not going to agree with me. But, the listing it the first day, getting multiple offers, being able to do whatever, negotiate anything, that's not healthy for the market. You bring up all the time, because you have children, that you're like, your dream is that your kids are able to live near you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And they don't have to move somewhere else. And that dream for a lot of people got squashed.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm a huge fan for trying to, create as much housing as you can to help keep that housing cost down. Supply and demand runs a lot of valuations. And this is where I just always scratch my head when people are trying to invoke policy. I'm like, how are you affecting the supply or the demand side of the equation when you create that policy?
Yeah.
If you build a whole lot of homes, you're increasing the supply. If the demand isn't going up, then prices are going to soften. Right now, I think we have a responsibility as a community to continue to lean in and build more housing units, not to get too far ahead of it, but just to get far enough ahead that we can keep appreciation modest. People, certainly have earned to have their home appreciate 3 to 5% a year. That's great. But to have these swings of 15, 20%, dangerous. Usually a bubble, doesn't last very long.
And you have two groups who are like, opposing each other, in that you have young people coming up saying, I really want to buy a house. And you have older people saying, hey, I really want to get the absolute most appreciation for my house. Yeah. And it's like, there's a word for that. It's called inflation.
Right. And there is a way to do both, but you have to add new construction in there. And then people need to become more capable of remodeling. Take the old rusty wagon, be able to sand it down, be able to repaint it, and be able to provide a wonderful piece of product to the market again. I mean, that's what we need for housing, right?
I think that's what we need for a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. Leave things better than when you found them.
Well, I think planned obsolescence is a business model. I think Microsoft and Intel taught us that. But I think anybody will go in their garage is a refrigerator from 1972 that's still running. Meanwhile, they're replacing their third super refrigerator in the house in the last 10 years.
Yep.
So our economy, there's some motivations for the things to not last that long.
True.
You know what I mean? Unfortunately.
True. Yep.
Well, Josh, any closing before we leave for September? Is there anything you want?
No, I'm excited about the fall. I think, like everybody, we want to see what the housing, is going to look like in terms of supply of homes coming to market and what that demand will be. I assure you, I'll be providing reports in the next couple of weeks and related to that, and we'll keep an eye on the ball.
Can I throw a little promo in?
Sure.
Marine Corps Balls, November 10th.
That's right.
Right. And where is it located?
We held it at Wind River.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to be November 10th, 250th birthday.
It's a big one this year. Are you going to join me?
Of course not. Anyway, you know me, Josh. Joey don't do balls.
I might get you out. Trust me, everybody. I think I might get Joey. Joey's a Marine also, if you didn't know. So
if anybody wants to go to Reno and put some money on me not going, now'd be the time. Wait for the odds to get really good.
We'll see if I can win you over.
Okay. Thanks, Josh. I'll see you in October, buddy.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.
If you're enjoying the All Things Real Estate podcast, please feel free to subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.